at this moment, that's the question for the viewers. If you could write what you think white poison is. There are many white powders, but most of you answered that it is sugar. Yet, we commonly eat sugar, we commonly need sugar. And yet, it is generally called white poison. Why white specifically? Well, maybe white means something, like purity, something clean that we would actually find acceptable, but surprisingly it's poisonous. But why poisonous when we eat sugar regularly, right? I have a sugar cube here. Let's first talk about why we actually need sugar. We'll demonstrate it simply with an experiment. I'm going to crush the sugar now. I'll crush it nicely into a really fine powder. So now I have it crushed and I will mix it with potassium chlorate, which is a substance that releases oxygen when heated. So we will actually have a reaction where the sugar combines with oxygen. I'll carefully mix it now. So, and now here. And now we'll try to ignite this mixture. A rapid reaction that released a large amount of heat and light. It's still smoking nicely here, but quite a strong exothermic reaction. The surface is really very hot now. This means that in contact with oxygen, sugar produces energy, and that is what we need. So sugar is very beneficial for us, very important. However, there is one principle that was uncovered by a scientist, or rather an alchemist in the 16th century, who is called Paracelsus. And that is Paracelsus's principle, which states that everything is poison and nothing is without poison. It was truly a revolutionary statement, and basically it could be paraphrased as everything can be a poison. It depends on the dose, it depends on the amount, and that is precisely very important. Paracelsus was quite a controversial person, but at the same time he learned from various shamans, traveled the world, was inspired, and arrived at this thesis, which is still valid today. He is essentially a founder of toxicology who truly says that it depends on the amount. So, we are already touching on what actually determines the white poison, the amount. Well, yes, but when we eat a lot of sugar, we imagine that we mainly face what? Well, that will be obese, right? And that's not exactly poison. We don't say that we are like, so what? We'll have a few extra pounds. And what's actually poisonous about it, right? It's unpleasant to be, for example, obese, but it's not anything poisonous. That means we have to look at it differently. We need to look at our metabolism because poisons often complicate the function of our body. Some metabolic pathways start to disrupt, violate, and so on. Let's take a look at our blood system. Here we have arteries, veins. They are distributed throughout our body. And our circulatory system has three basic tasks. The first task is to somehow distribute the material
from which we are made, which of course can mainly be proteins, and then of course some other substances, some ions, minerals, and so on. Then, what is the next thing we need? We need energy, and that energy is precisely in sugar, right? That means in glucose and in the oxygen that is distributed to the cells. The third thing there is so-called hormones. And hormones are responsible for the fact that information flows through the body. This means that they somehow control what should happen, when, and where. They are like good policemen saying, send this here, send this there, do it this way, and so on. These hormones actually control what should happen in the metabolism, and they are also present in the blood in various doses according to what we need for the body to function well. And when we consume sugar, if we consume a lot of it, a so-called hormone is released, and that hormone is called insulin. This is what it looks like, and that insulin results in or creates the effect of opening the gates to our muscle and fat cells. This means that at the moment when our level rises, if there is too much sugar, then the insulin causes the sugar to be drawn from the blood into the muscles so we can perform some activity, or into fat. Why? Well, because we can't have too much sugar in the blood. We can have about 1 sugar cube per 5 liters of blood. This is the normal state of glycemia. Yes, 1 sugar cube for our entire body. That means the sugar has to be drawn off. And that's exactly what insulin does, which opens the gates to our muscles or possibly to our fats. And we can eat various amounts of sugar. We can eat, for example, a roll. A roll also contains some starch, which breaks down into glucose. It becomes simple sugar, and we feel full. Or we can eat a cake, or we can eat sugar directly. And I want to ask, what happens if I eat too much sugar at once? That means I start eating those sugar cubes like this. Either I get hyperglycemia, or I will have hypoglycemia. And while you answer this question, I will start getting into how insulin regulation works in our body. Let's take this first one. A kind of first gadget. It's a Pythagorean cup, and in it there's a straw and a bend. Imagine this as the normal state of glycemia. That means it's the normal level we should have in our blood. The moment we eat, and eat reasonably without consuming too much sugar, just the right amount, or if we eat it in combination with another substance, like in the form of a roll or something else, our blood sugar level starts to rise slowly. And the moment it goes above a certain threshold, insulin starts to react to it. That means the insulin is released and starts to draw the sugar into the cells, into the muscle cells, and thus our blood sugar level decreases. And because everything has a bit of inertia, the blood sugar level drops slightly below the normal state. So we get hungry again and eat a little to get it back to some normal state as we're used to. Yeah, that's for this edge. And now let's look at a different situation. We eat a lot of sugar at once. Nowadays, it's not a problem at all to get a large amount of sugar. It wasn't so easy before, but we are able to create it in a concentrated form. So we eat a lot of it. This means that a large amount of sugar enters our body at once. This means that a large amount of insulin is released, and that insulin starts to draw into the muscles. The muscles begin, if we have some activity, then of course we burn it. If we don't have it, muscles create glycogen. If they have too much and don't know what to do with it, fat cells come in, and it all starts being processed into fats in the fat cells. Now we are at the normal glycemia level. However, everything in the body has inertia. So it also takes some time before we clear out that insulin. This means that even the low sugar we have now continues to be stored. It keeps storing, and we reach a low sugar state. Yes, that means we went through a state of having a lot of sugar, which is hyperglycemia, and then we got into hypoglycemia. Intuitively, one might think they will have hyperglycemia, but it might not naturally occur to us that as a result of insulin metabolism, we actually end up in hypoglycemia. And then, of course, we are as hungry as crazy. That means we have to eat a lot of sugar again to balance back, right? But what can all this result in? This is called the glycemic peak or glycemic shock. And basically, it starts pumping like this. We have high sugar, low sugar, high sugar, low sugar. It can cause, if we keep irritating our system like this for a long time, that our cells will start to become immune to insulin. That means they will simply need more of it to activate, to open the gates. That means this. I've run out of water here. So if you don't mind, I'll borrow some here. When I refill it, the normal state actually shifts higher. That means our normal glycemia level shifts higher, and we'll have more sugar and also more insulin in the body. And now we get back to Paracelsus' principle that it doesn't matter. It always depends on the amount, whether something is poisonous. At that moment, we have too much sugar in us all the time. Sugar is a poison because we have higher sugar, and at the same time, we have too much insulin. And both of these substances, if we have too much of them, become a poison for us. Sugar, if we have too much of it, results in several things. Firstly, the blood has slightly higher viscosity, flows worse. At the same time, white blood cells, or rather red blood cells, start to stick together a bit, have worse flexibility. Another problem is that the blood is less oxygenated. That means we might be more tired. So these are a few things that can lead to what high sugar can cause us. Also, our extremities might not get enough blood. The eyes don't get enough blood because there are capillaries. And at that moment, the eyes start to have poor circulation. That's why people with diabetes might lose their sight. Conversely, if we have a lot of insulin, too much insulin causes inflammation. This means inflammation can occur. Also, fats are broken down very poorly when we have an excessive amount of insulin. That means people have trouble losing weight and so on. The pressure increases due to the poor breakdown of certain substances in the body, and so on and so on. There are really many things that insulin, when we have too much of it, starts to harm. It also becomes a poison. So we basically have that white poison contained in two things: too much sugar and too much insulin. So I wish for you that these toxins do not occur too much in your body, that you have everything nicely balanced. And that's all from me.